For most people, subscriptions never feel dangerous because individually they barely register as spending at all, and that is exactly what makes them so effective. A streaming service here, cloud storage there, a music platform, delivery membership, editing software, fitness app, AI tool, premium phone backup, digital notes app, maybe even a few forgotten free trials that quietly converted months ago. None of them feel large enough to trigger concern, yet together they create something surprisingly powerful. A permanent financial drag that follows people every single month without demanding attention. The modern economy increasingly depends on this kind of invisible spending because predictable recurring payments are more valuable to companies than one-time purchases ever were. In older consumer systems, businesses had to repeatedly convince customers to return and buy again, but subscription models changed the equation entirely. Once a person enters the system, inertia often keeps them there. Behavioral economists sometimes refer to this as passive retention, where the effort required to cancel becomes psychologically larger than the actual cost itself. This becomes especially dangerous because the human brain processes subscriptions differently from direct purchases. Paying $50 once creates friction because the entire loss is experienced immediately, but paying $10 5 times across different platforms rarely feels equivalent even though mathematically it is identical. The spending becomes fragmented, and fragmented spending hides reality from the mind. Companies understand this extremely well. Monthly pricing reduces emotional resistance because smaller recurring numbers appear manageable even when the long-term total becomes enormous. A person paying $200 per month across subscriptions may not emotionally register the seriousness of that number because no single charge feels catastrophic. Yet over 1 year that becomes $2,400, and over 10 years, without even accounting for price increases, it quietly reaches $24,000. What makes this more concerning is that subscriptions rarely stay constant. Platforms continuously increase prices in small increments because gradual increases are less noticeable than large ones. A $2 rise rarely causes cancellation, but repeated across millions of users, it produces massive corporate revenue growth. 200 times 12 times 10 is equal to 24,000. The deeper issue is not only mathematical but psychological. Subscription systems reshape how people relate to ownership itself. Previous generations bought products outright and experienced a clear endpoint to spending. A television was purchased once. Music collections were owned physically. Software came in boxes and lasted years. Today, many consumers effectively rent access to large portions of their digital lives indefinitely. Entertainment, productivity, communication, storage, and even transportation increasingly operate on recurring payment structures. This transition subtly changes financial behavior because recurring expenses reduce the feeling of control over money. Fixed monthly obligations create mental pressure even when incomes are stable. Every additional subscription becomes another permanent claim on future earnings, and over time these claims stack quietly in the background until a significant portion of income is already assigned before the month even begins. There is also a status component hidden inside subscription culture. Many digital services market themselves not as utilities but as identity enhancements. Premium tools imply productivity. Exclusive memberships imply sophistication. Convenience services imply efficiency and modernity. The purchase stops feeling transactional and starts feeling personal, which makes cancellation psychologically uncomfortable because ending the subscription can feel like downgrading oneself rather than merely reducing expenses. Historically, economies evolve around whatever payment system maximizes consumer compliance. Credit cards expanded spending by separating purchases from immediate cash loss. Buy now, pay later systems expanded spending by compressing perceived affordability. Subscriptions expand spending by removing purchasing decisions entirely. Once the decision is automated, attention disappears, and attention is the very mechanism that normally limits consumption. The trap becomes more severe during periods of economic stress because recurring expenses are rigid. When incomes shrink unexpectedly, subscriptions do not naturally adjust downward. Many people discover during financial hardship that a large percentage of their monthly cash flow is locked into systems they barely think about anymore. This rigidity creates fragility because flexibility is one of the most important characteristics of financial resilience. There is also an interesting mathematical asymmetry involved. Small recurring savings accumulate more powerfully than people expect because subscriptions are continuous rather than occasional. Eliminating just one $15 monthly expense seems insignificant emotionally, yet redirected into long-term investing, even modest amounts compound meaningfully over time. FV tongue sticking out times. 1 plus R and -1. The important insight is not that subscriptions are inherently bad. Many provide real utility and save time. The issue is that modern financial systems are increasingly optimized to normalize permanent low-friction spending because predictable recurring revenue creates extraordinarily stable business models. The danger appears when consumers stop consciously evaluating whether each recurring expense still provides proportional value. Financial stability often depends less on dramatic decisions and more on unnoticed habits repeated for years. The subscription trap works precisely because it avoids triggering emotional alarms. Nothing feels urgent. Nothing feels reckless. Yet slowly, silently, a growing percentage of future income becomes committed before it is ever earned. The most financially resilient people are often not those who avoid all spending, but those who remain highly aware of what continuously extracts money from their lives. In an economy designed around automated payments, attention itself becomes a financial asset.